All right, we're getting live on YouTube.
Dave, I'm getting kind of seasick there, buddy.
Oh, I didn't know. Here, there you go.
Thanks.
I was like, I don't know if I can keep that up of Dave.
I didn't know. I thought maybe I was down at the bottom somewhere.
Well, it's
I
good
gotta
to see
keep
everybody.
moving,
that made
Hudson.
it
I
in.
gotta keep moving.
Mhm.
Oh, I get it. You can't stop. Stopping is a negative thing. Well, we may have a smaller group live on Zoom and maybe even live on YouTube with the outages that we've got with Amazon's big servers are down this morning. So we'll have a little group. People can unmute if you have something to say. We've got the raise hand feature too, right? If people need to ask a question or something. We'll take some questions at the end, but the main thing is to run through. Oh, here comes a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Let's see, Al and Bruce are popping in. Chris, good to see folks. All right,
Chris,
we've had a little
Bruce.
problem with a hard time getting
Al.
big servers are down this morning. So I'll have a little group. Somebody's audio's.
That's me.
That's you. All right, cool. All right.
We're going.
David Archer can't make it this morning, but we've got Woody, Rick, Darren. Darren's going to be monitoring the feed on YouTube and can feed us some questions from there. We'll go through. I was just starting to say we had a little slow start this morning. There's a bunch of servers down in the internet world. So people are having a little trouble logging in, but we're going to go through, look at all the winners of the contest. We picked 3 winners. We'll save those guys for last. And we're going to go through. It was really hard to choose. There were so many great images. And there's no way we can actually even go through all of them, but we're going to run through some honorable mentions and talk about some images that were just great in that gallery. I don't know if you want to say a couple things before we start doing that, Rick, but it's just impressive. Every time we ask you guys for images, it's shockingly good, the quality of the work that you put out. So
I agree.
Yeah. All right.
Before we start, we should mention, many of you might have gotten emails already about the last bit of the 2022 workshops, which opened last week. We've also got, you might remember we did these sort of online workshops, the projects last year. We've got one scheduled for early February for Panos. And I think that's about it. So we got Owens Valley, Portland, Tetons, and Yellowstone all open for workshops.
And we haven't, they've been filling really quickly. So if anybody here wants to do those, particularly Owens Valley, there's not very many spots left. The others are going fast too. So, and the project is going to be, it's a 2-week thing. We'll be after creating a fine finished panorama, but we'll do some practice exercises and online training and group participation. So we've done that one before. We're going to do it again. It was a lot of fun, limited to 10 people.
Yeah, real quick about the projects. Just to remind everyone that it's largely self-directed. It's not a 2-week every day kind of commitment. You pop in, pop out. There's some assignments. There are group meetings, but they're recorded and flexible. So it looks like a 2-week intense thing. It is not.
Yeah.
It's a nice thing to do in the winter months. Get together as a group and hone those skills. So the other note, for the people who win this contest, if you're watching this later, we'll send out those $75 gift certificates for the store, and I'll put your names and send you an email to the folks at Foolography in Germany for the Unleashed. And whoever those Unleashed, there's a brand new version coming for 2022. They just wrapped their Kickstarter. It made like 10 times as much as they needed to get it to go. And it's going to work with Fuji, Sony, Panasonic, as well as Nikon and Canon. You can pick whether you want the older version that works with just Nikon and Canon and have it right now, or wait a little bit and get that brand new version. And they're not cheap. They're like $280 or something like that. So it's a nice little thing. And I love those Bluetooth controllers. So thanks so much to Foolography and Unleashed for sponsoring this photo contest. It's nice of them. All right, let's just jump in. We got a lot of images to look at. And everybody seeing my screen okay?
Yep.
There were just so darn many great images. It's really difficult to whittle it down to 3. And we have a lot of just kind of awesome honorable mentions. I love this minimalist shot by Michael.
Yeah.
Beautiful 90-second long exposure, so sharp. That leading line taking us out is just fantastic with that sky.
Yeah.
That's something that I find a lot, when you've got the sunset isn't really going, but there's interesting clouds. I had one that I shot sort of like this in Patagonia where, the sunset didn't really happen. It didn't spark that much, but by doing a 2-minute exposure, the clouds did such an interesting thing coming toward us. I love the image that I got. So that's something to think about on those kind of blasé edge of the day shoots that happen. Al, everybody's probably seen this shot. We did a whole approaching the scene about it. It's such a cool result. This multiple exposure of the SpaceX launch from Cape Canaveral.
This is one of my favorite images that I've seen in the last year.
I know you're in here, Al. Bravo on that one. It's just gorgeous. This shot by James Day is just so beautifully sharp of this bird. That eye and the softness of it's soft and sharp at the same time. It's just a lovely, lovely bird image. Mike, this shot looking up the boardwalk to the light with the grasses, blowing in a little night breeze. It's just really
it's painterly.
Yeah.
Really
Talk
painterly
lines.
Yep.
Whew. Yeah,
there's a lot to love in this one.
Yeah, beautiful, dreamlike. David, just the contrast in this shot. Razor sharp. You got that 1,000th of a second shutter speed. Man, it's just I love the contrast in this shallow depth of field. Really,
and the
nice.
base.
Mm-hmm.
This structure, it looks like a pool almost in the foreground, really sort of helps set the bird off just right. And that little bit of foliage in the upper right hand corner, just helps move you into the frame.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Jim, this is just such an interesting scene. There's this, I love foggy images. The sun is pretty high, backlighting the scene. There'd be no way to capture this if there wasn't the fog. And then the fog hiding that kind of misty shore back there. The lines of it are cool. It's just a really interesting shot, different.
Yeah, that little pool in the rock down below is great. It sort of echoes the sun,
Great triangle of foreground rock.
Mm-hmm.
Richard, just a lovely scene. The reflections here are so serene. Great foreground subject. Beautiful scene. Beautiful scene. Really great work here. This is not easy to do.
No.
There's a whole lot of compositing and careful, painstaking work in here. It's really well done. Starts with great image.
And different.
Jeremy. Yeah, but different. Exactly. Jeremy, what a really gorgeous reflection shot. Jeremy's actually an old friend of mine that's moved up into this kind of northeastern Washington region around Idaho-Washington border, and he's been exploring the lakes and mountains up there. And this is just a lovely lake shot. I love the reflection. Reno. So Rick and I were talking about this as we went through images. Both of us have a number of photographs of Tea Kettle Junction. Tea Kettle Junction is a spot that you come to on the rough road out to the racetrack in Death Valley. Both of us have a lot of images of this, and none of them are this good.
Yes.
I've seen so many pictures of this, and this one captures it. And it's gorgeous.
Yeah,
really,
yeah. It's a fun place.
Yeah, it is.
And it's captured really, really well.
Take nothing but pictures, leave nothing but tea kettles. Dave, this one's ethereal. The moon up above. I remember this morning, this was on our Yellowstone workshop. That gradient is gorgeous. way to stop and nail it on your way out to what we were after. You know, you saw something out of nothing and composed the chaos into a really lovely shot. I just love that mist rising up with the longer exposure. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice work.
This is a beautiful, beautiful image.
It really is. I'm a sucker for these gradient shots, the yellow to
Yeah.
blue. DC, we were just talking about polar bears before the meeting got going. I love the way that the foreground diagonal line crosses here and he's popping up through. You never see polar bears in brush. This is awesome.
Yeah. Yep.
Really awesome.
And only 300 millimeters, DC.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm hoping you were enclosed in
That-
some sort of a.
That's hoarfrost. It's fog that froze on the bushes.
It's cool. Are you in a vehicle or something?
In a tundra buggy, yeah.
Yeah, I figured.
My feet never touched the ground 3 days.
That's better when you
Yeah.
got these guys roaming around.
Exactly.
Nice shot, DC. Mark, I should have been there with you a couple of times. This is at Cape Disappointment up just north of the Oregon-Washington border. Actually just kind of on the other side of the Columbia River. It's a spot I need to go. When you get the king tides, it blows up a bit like Shore Acres here. And this is a really nice capture. Perfectly timed.
Did you see the lineup of photographers there? There was a photo that was sort of circulating, and it was kind of like Mesa Arch, you know.
Oh, Mark told
5
me it's a
a.m.
small spot. Mhm.
Yeah.
Told me it's a
But-
small spot and you need to get there long before you need to be.
Yep.
This one, Robert, this is one of my favorite places. This is a spot we take people on workshops to Brookings down on the Oregon-California border where we've got the redwoods and spectacular coastline. We did a lot of Milky Way work this last fall. This is a really lovely shot of it. And the long exposure is awesome. The wave action turned to mist, just that sky, beautiful work, really nice. Rebecca, one of my favorite places. I know Rebecca spent a lot of time out in Death Valley this last year during the kind of, it was quarantine time. Rebecca said, I'm taking my trailer to Death Valley. I'm going to hang out by myself and with her animals. And beautiful image of the dunes there at Mesquite. I just love the lines in this. Really nice. Great light. Ken, this shot, the way you've lined up the artillery piece with the Milky Way, it's a great Milky Way shot. Even more, it's one of those rare, really well done light painted scenes.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is lit just perfectly. It's a really nice job with that. Not
Yeah,
easy
it's
to do.
fascinating. Yep.
It is. We had a couple of good fighter plane shots. This one by Mike is just crazy as it's breaking the sonic barrier there.
Yeah, the motion in
I
this
like
is
the
just
shadow.
nuts. Yeah.
Yeah, motion in it's crazy, and the angle of the sun is putting a shadow of the plane through the sonic booms. Out there, and there's a bit of a sundog happening around. It's a crazy shot. Douglas, this would be a beautiful image without the rainbow.
Yeah. It's a fun shot. There's so much going on. It's like right at that edge where there's almost too much, despite the fact that it's so minimal. But it's just beautifully captured. The light, this is one of those days where the light is just going to be amazing, and then you throw a rainbow in on it.
Well, there's all these vertical elements. The rainbow's a
Yeah.
vertical element, both
Yep.
the lighthouses, the shine of light on the light, all these planks, and
Yeah.
the man with the umbrella, all of it. It's cool.
Yeah, it's a really lovely shot.
Another, we love our Joshua trees, put the Milky Way over it's even better. And the light painting here is also really nice. Fun stuff. I love the silhouettes of the trees on the horizon. That's kind of what makes the shot for me. Great Milky Way capture too.
Yep.
This another just sharp where it needs to be, soft where it isn't, and then a nice texture thrown in there. A lot of work
Yeah.
in this.
Yeah.
Really well.
This is one where the
Beautiful.
texturizing really helps accentuate the image.
Agreed.
It's not
Agreed.
something you use all the time, but
Right.
here it really helps.
Mhm. This one by Carlos. you know, it's just the lights in this scene are so fun. And you look at it, it really just works. I like the
Yeah.
ghost people, you know, it's a 15-second shot, so everything's a bit blurred. Great moment in the sky. The clouds are a bit blurred, but those lights are sharp. And it's, you know, you look at how carefully this thing is composed so that no light is overlapping any other light. And they don't even
Mhm.
overlap the windmills in the distance. It's just
Yeah.
really nice.
It's a thoughtful composition, you know, and again, it's, you know, like that one of the Lighthouse in the Rainbow, the light was so great.
Yeah.
And to recognize that and build this composition just to me is amazing. I love the shot.
And I love the ghost people walking through it too.
Yep.
So you guys are starting to see, I mean, this has not been an easy contest to pick 3 of. The perspective of this image, Brandon, is just awesome. I mean, not all of us have been up in these points looking down with, you know, the mountains spread out. It's just gorgeous. I'm guessing this is up in Goat Rocks looking back at Rainier, and it's, you know, you're looking through the national park, so there's not all the cuts that you'd normally see up in a high alpine zone. It's just beautiful. Love it. That
Yeah.
perspective. These are the
The
kinds of
lines are
images.
wonderful.
Oh, the lines are wonderful. And these are the kinds of images that, you know, I was up in these places as a young person, and I wanted to bring that view back home to share with friends and family. That's what got me into photography in the beginning. This image speaks to me of that. Surrender, this is just a beautiful shot of this bird. And, you know, I love the interesting vegetation in the foreground, and it's sharp where it needs to be. Your eye goes right to the bird's eye. Soft where it doesn't. It's really nice shot. Really nice. Kathy, this is just the diagonal flow of this, top left to bottom right, and then the swirl. This is just a cool ice, you know, close up macro view of the world. The shapes, you can get lost in looking at this.
Mhm.
Beautiful. Way to recognize the order in the chaos, so to speak. Carl, what a beautiful fall scene. Great layers in this. The
Yeah.
blue.
I'm assuming this is a pano. Carl does love doing those panos,
He does.
but it's just the foliage just makes it, you know.
Mhm.
Those
And the blue
those
sky.
trees down in the lower, you know, even the ones without leaves on them, you know, they're just so sharp.
Mhm. Sharp. Sharp
Yeah.
is the key word. And panos help with that too, but
Yeah.
sharp is the key word. Stephen, beautiful scene. This looks like Zion to me.
Does have
it's
that
just-
look, yeah.
Yeah. First snow, the last leaves are off the trees. Beautiful scene. Love the window in the clouds and that blue with that light striking. It's those moments are fleeting in a place like this. You captured that bit of light squeaking through. It's really nice.
I love the little ramp of sunlight in that on the
Me
lower.
too.
Yeah.
in here.
Yep.
Me too.
It's just beautiful.
Just leads you through the scene and back. I love it. Ken,
And
what a gorgeous glacier view shot. The waterfalls framed so nice. You know, I've been here a lot of times. This is a really interesting moment there with the fog slipping down through the valley.
it's really hard, you know, to take an image here, especially in the context of such iconic photographers, you know, who've been here before. But this one to me was compelling. I mean, the fog really does kind of make it because it drags you into the scene where the waterfall is. But you know, it's a beautiful shot, Ken. It really is.
It really is. It really is. I love the waterfall half dome El Cap back there, sleeping through the fog. Beautiful. Sharp, 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 Brian. Great action shot.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fill in the frame. That's what we talk
Sharp,
about.
sharp,
Fill in the
sharp.
frame. Sharp, sharp, sharp. This image only works when it's sharp, and it really is. Nice job with that. I just love the pose. Speaking of sharp, Jim, beautiful.
This is
lily
beautiful.
shot.
Yeah.
Just, you know, it looks like a custard that's decorated, you know. in the center. Oh man.
Yeah, it's really well done. It's,
Mhm.
you know, again, the sharpness everywhere where it needs to be just sort of makes it.
Yeah, and not, not sharp and distracting in the background. You did a really nice job bringing our eye right where it needs to be and making sure that every bit of that lily flower is sharp. Great work. We've got another shot with so much going on here. Beautiful light is the
Mhm.
key denominator here, and the river staking through down below to the rainbow, clouds along the rim, just nice lines, beautiful light. Great job, Kyle. Great job. Complicated exposure too. Nailed it. Really nice. Greg, this is just a crazy scene.
Yeah, this is one of those images that it's like,
Yeah.
you know, you look at it and you're like, what? And then you're like, wow, you
Yeah.
know, it is a really successful image. It's a really successful image.
Groups of three.
Yep.
Groups of three tend to be compelling, but the composition is so nice. It's that flag.
And the shadow and the silhouette just makes it work.
Even that little line of like, maybe it's water in the distance that's catching the last light and causing that straight line across the bottom. It's just fascinating. Beautiful shot. Eric, again, sharp. And out at 600 millimeters f4, so soft in the background. Yeah, I love there's like a fly or something on the beak there. Yep. It's just beautiful. Dave, this just, it just works. This line of shadow cutting in between the sky and the water. And the way that the waves at a half a second, or a little more than a half a second with waves is a scene that I just love. I love, a lot of the times with the standard kind of waterfall, half a second's kind of my starting point. I'll adjust depending on flow. Same thing with waves, unless you want to just go to complete mist, like we had that shot down near Brookings where it was, a really long exposure and you're turning all of the wave action into mist to get ethereal. When you're photographing waves, half a second's a really nice spot to start. Half a second to a second and a half, and this just works. There's that blur of motion that you can feel. Compositionally, this scene just really works well. And I, again, sucker for that gold yellow to blue gradient that happens in the blue hour. I love it. It's really nice. And then the high key minimalist, love this one.
This is another one that you've got that repetition of the trees, the threes. You've got beautiful sort of foggy, low contrast stuff in the background, and those birds. I mean, if this image did not have those birds in it, it would not be successful.
No, not at all.
It's just got a little bit of tension to it that sort of helps keep your eye in the frame.
Yep. Agreed. And also, I love these little foreground details that come through the fog at us. There's depth to this. That just really...
these are the things. It's like sometimes we'll be doing critiques and we'll say, oh, well, you should, use the eraser to take those out. But there are times when those types of elements actually work, and they really work in this image here. It's almost like a bottom frame.
Whenever you're out somewhere, I think, and you find it's a complicated place to photograph, there's just too much going on. The background's busy. Wait for a foggy day. Fog is an opportunity to go to photograph elements that you're really intrigued by, but there's just too much busyness around. The fog will simplify your scene in really interesting ways. I always think of a foggy day as a really great opportunity to go out photographing. And then if you're lucky and the fog breaks up as the sun gets a little higher, sometimes you'll get those God rays coming through the fog, through trees, and it's just a great time to be out. Wow, what an interesting scene. Beautiful Milky Way capture. Really nice colors. really nice color choices in here. You know, we have a little bit of latitude with picking, you know, how we white balance the Milky Way in scenes, and then choosing a tungsten light to light the foreground really goes nicely with the blue. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, this is a really nice shot, just overall.
Yeah, indeed. These mushrooms are just, it's like you've lit them from beneath somehow.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it's processing, just really careful processing. They're sharp where they need to be. The background's dreamy and blurred. It's a very, you know, very dreamlike image.
Yeah, the background really, to me, sort of makes it, you know, it sets those toadstools off, you know. And the sort of the way the ramp of the rock in front sort of takes you up into the composition. But
Great work,
I'm a
Rick.
sucker for those backgrounds. So
Yeah, I love the shallow depth of field and the nice bokeh. All right, James. Wow, sharp. Love the eye. You know, and filling the frame. We talk about filling the frame. This is filling the frame. And I just razor sharp. This work. Super interesting, Timothy. I'm curious. I can't remember from the notes whether this was shot with a dedicated infrared camera or whether it's an edit. It looks like a dedicated infrared to me. It's really well done. Such an interesting element coming out at just the right angle and just the right spot. And I love that U-shaped valley and the light coming through. It's so interesting. Infrared is totally a different view of the world. I'm often tempted to take one of my old cameras and get it infrared adapted, but I have yet to do so. But eventually, I'm going to do it because it's another interesting photographic trip to take. I think and midday is the time to be doing it. Really nice, nice way to envision the infrared world. So this is a dreamy shot, Jamie. It just it's the reflections are so nice. I like that you got every bit of this upper branches in the scene. The longer exposure lets those clouds go to blur. Really nice shot.
Yeah.
And that 21.8 is so sharp. That's a great lens to do this kind of work with. I love that thing. I'm taking a real minimalist kit to Mexico, and that one's making the list. Fun stuff.
Okay.
Which I take off for in about a week. It's crazy. All right, so we are down, believe it or not, to the three people that we've chosen as the de facto sort of winners of this contest. And again, any one of these images deserves to be a winner. They've all been beautiful. So all three of these, after long argument and deliberation, we love this shot by Terry. Just the motion of it. You know, the razor sharp eye, that beautiful blurred background, beautiful shot.
Yeah,
beautiful. Really,
yeah.
nice
Terry's a pretty phenomenal bird photographer, but this one just sort of is pretty darn close to the top of the stuff I've seen from her. And it's just wonderful. And it wasn't. I mean, we had a number of great bird shots this time. You know, it was not easy to pick.
Beautiful, beautiful work. Huge congrats, Terry. We'll be in touch. Ralph, this one, you know, it breaks a rule or two, kind of splitting the center of the frame, but it's so perfectly split. You know, you've got that gradient and the fresh snow and the tree. I don't know. It's just lovely.
This is one of those images that you know, there's a little bit of luck and happenstance in the situation in the scene. I mean, that snow just so perfectly swept, you know, the light just right, that tree. I mean, it's
not a track.
Yeah, this image just kind of stunned me when I saw it, and just so it's so calming, you know.
I love the yellow to blue. I love the reflected blue with the texture from that perfect. I'm feeling like it's pre-dawn light. It could be post-sunset light.
Ralph is in the room too, so.
Oh, nice. Well, congrats, Ralph. You rocked this one. I love the way this bisects diagonally, and it's almost a
Yeah.
perfect bisection. Like this is about the same length as this. This is about the same length as that.
Yeah.
And you got this diagonal line running this way, but then all the texture of the snow has drifts running counter. So you get this kind of diagonal meeting diagonal and triangles. And our foundational tree, your eye runs around this and comes right back to the backlit tree. It's just a lovely shot. It drew me in.
He says that this is printed very big and sits on his wall.
As it should. Well, congrats, Ralph. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a lovely image, Ralph. It really is.
And then finally, our good friend who we've been looking at images from for years, Patrick, absolutely stunning, sharp everywhere it needs to be, from the hand right up through to the hair, the eyes, the fade into the distance there with just all that texture on both sides, perfectly straight lines, perfectly composed. Patrick, you've shown us so many great images over the years, and I love seeing them every time. And I swear Kyoto's on my list, and I would love to go photographing with you in Kyoto. I know you know it well. It's beautiful. Congratulations, man. That's just another lovely shot.
Yeah, this one, that arc of sharpness from the hand up to the hair, is just it just floors me.
It's really peaceful. There's just a peacefulness to this scene.
Yeah.
It's great. Great work, everyone. And, all the other people who, we didn't have time to go through and showcase each and every image. Huge congratulations to everyone that was contributing to this gallery, because it's a beautiful gallery. We're leaving it up. We've got it alphabetized, but we'll put the winners up at the top of it. Just awesome work, everyone. As I said, it just really never fails to impress me. When we put out a call for images, this community gives really ridiculously high quality images, and I'm super proud of it. So congrats to everybody that entered, and thanks so much to everyone. And again, thanks to Philography for donating those 3 Unleashed. So I'm really happy to be sending those emails out and sharing those with folks. So congrats, everybody. I think for the rest of the time, we've got a good 25 minutes to do questions, and we've got a number of questions. So shall we run through?
If anybody
Rick?
has any questions for from either YouTube or Zoom, just enter them into the chat window. We don't have a ton of questions, but let's see. Well, we had this one yesterday. Talking about printing and the high resolution cameras, Gabe asks, with the higher resolution of a camera like the Z7 or the A7R IV, make much of a difference versus some of these lower resolution cameras like the Z6, the A7 III, now 4. Does it really make that much of a difference? Can you get good sort of larger prints from those lower resolution cameras, lower megapixel cameras?
And I'm a guy that loves printing and printing big. And so, I would say the reason I'm into panoramas and have been for years and years and years since the days of film was I wanted higher quality prints that you could walk right up to that were huge. And back in the day, I was working with 12 megapixel cameras at what seemed like forever. And I could increase by using multi-row panoramas or even just single row panoramas that 12 megapixels up into the 50, 100, 150 megapixel range just by combining multiple images. And then I started finding that I got different perspectives using different focal lengths and getting wider scenes than I possibly could. It all was driven originally by the desire for more megapixels to get a better looking print. Now, I think that if you're printing, and to be honest, I was just dreaming of 24 megapixels when the Nikon D800 came out at 36, and it was revolution. All of a sudden, I didn't need to do panoramas as often. I still can make beautiful prints with a 24 megapixel image. If it's sharp, there's no problem up-resing that image and printing it large. I have 12 megapixel prints that are up in my house, 24 by 36. I think that's starting to kind of hit the edge. If you're going to walk up close, if you've got a viewing distance, they're still going to look great.
Right.
If you're printing something 8 by 10 or 16 by 20, you're fine with the 24 megapixels, no problem whatsoever. I mean, you're probably fine with 24 by 36. That's double what I have some of my prints in the house.
Especially with some of the resizing algorithms that are out there. I mean, Photoshop does a good job. On One does a good job. People actually have good things to say about the Topaz UpRes.
It has to start with a good image.
Yes.
Any
Yes.
flaw in your image is going to be magnified when you upres it.
Right.
And the honest truth is, if you encounter a magnificent scene and you got a 24 megapixel camera, my advice is, instead of taking a single frame of it, flip it vertical and pan through the scene and capture it in 5 overlapping vertical images and take that 24 megapixels and make it into your 46. That isn't going to work for sports and action and wildlife. But how often do we really want to print sports and action and wildlife bigger than 16 by 20? I mean, that's a pretty big print of that stuff. So,
that's the other thing that I would caution here is that, most of us are printing 5 by 7, 8 by 10, 11 by 17, maybe 16 by 20. And almost, I've gotten 16 by 20 images out of phone shots,
I just had it in my hand.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, it's easy to get caught up and I want to have a big print on my wall. But, one of the things you really want to be doing is printing your work, even small. I'm always printing at 5 by 7 or on a letter size sheet of luster, just printing out images from, a workshop or the last 6 months, you just having them sit around in a basket for a while and looking at them. And it helps inform your editing. I just think sometimes people get hung up on, well, I want to print them big. So should I, what should I do? And it's like, print them small first.
Yeah.
Work
and
on.
Before I ever make a big print, I do test prints. And as Rick said, I have a preset for this big HP 9900 back here that it puts 8 5 by 7s on a strip that comes out on the 44-inch, luster paper. And so I print 5 by 7s constantly. And as you said, Rick, I did a bunch of 8 by 10s and 5 by 7s from my Pixel phone camera for Christmas presents to the family of the kids this year, and they look beautiful. So, yes, you can make prints from smaller sensors, no doubt.
Yeah.
Where do you guys get your prints?
Where?
Yeah, like where do you order prints? Somebody asked on YouTube, so good timing.
I like Bay Photo if I'm making a print that really matters, if I'm making it for the wall. I use Bay Photo to make metal prints generally, but I also really like their work on luster paper and on their fine art papers. They do a really nice job. And when you go through them, you just need to make a full resolution JPEG and Adobe RGB with the look that you like. Let's say you're using Lightroom or ON1, you just export it the way you have edited and the way you like it. And they'll pull it up and color proof it and make sure it looks right. That looks like what it's going to look like on the screen on their paper before they run it. And they're just a wonderful organization. I love them. If you just want snapshot like prints, Costco is still the place to go, right, Rick? I mean, that's
Costco. I think I like MPix as well. I think MPix does a really good job. I think, if I wanted to have someone print fine art, I agree with you. I would use Bay Photo. I think that they're a little bit more expensive, but they also put a little bit more into it. Costco's great. They don't have in-store pickup anymore, but who cares about that? So MPix, find a friend who's got a printer and give them some money for ink. I I would say the amount of printing that I've had done in the last 5 years has been 10, 15, times, sometimes like to print on glass or print on metal or stuff like that. There's some pretty great printers out today that it doesn't cost you a hell of a lot to print if you're interested in it. Harris asks if we think differently about when you're printing a calendar or a book. I would say not really. I mean, anything that I'm going to print beyond the sort of what does it look like beyond the proof stage, I'm going to take care to make sure that image looks properly edited for what I want to do in the end.
I think it's a huge topic. We're talking about doing some serious training on printing this year. It's a whole nother art form to get in and learn, sort of aside from capture and edit. There's edit for print and making sure that you do, there's so much to teach in that. So Rick and I are looking at doing some stuff and maybe even a print workshop in the not so distant future.
Printing, I think printing for me informs my editing. It informs my shooting. I'm in the midst of this, what seems like an interminable project for me of redoing my portfolio. And one of the end result of that portfolio is to have 16 by 20 prints of all of the items in the portfolio. Looking at prints sort of helps me think, that's when I'm wondering whether I think an image really is portfolio worthy, doing a test print of it, even at letter size, sort of helps inform that. Does it really look as good an image? If I just tack it on the string on the wall, with a binder clip, does that, so. But I also get that people don't necessarily want to print, but getting prints, especially, 5x7s are a wonderful print size, and gang up and send 25 of them to MPix or Costco or Shutterfly and just, spread them out on your table and look at them. Yeah.
All right.
And there's lots of, there are a couple people have talked about, other shops. There are actually many places have print shops that will do stuff. Fred says in Naples, there's a local print shop that prints on canvas, glass, metal, all different kinds of papers. I used a service called Fracture a couple of years ago that prints on glass. They did a nice job. They're pricey, but if you go and you sign up and you give me your email address, they'll give you 10% off your first order. And that's kind of what I did, just sort of check them out. And they were pretty good when I said, I don't want to be on your mailing list anymore. I'll come see you when I'm ready. So.
Got a question about what paper we use for 5x7s, and I just use Epson Premium Luster usually. It's a really nice that is affordable.
I use Red River. Red River makes does some really great papers that are comparable to the Epsons and less expensive. The problem with using Epson's Luster is that they only come in letter size, so you have to cut them or print 2 5x7s on the sheet. Whereas I just buy boxes of I think it's Arctic Polar Satin. It's their sort of highest level luster paper. And I just get them in 5x7 boxes and just gang feed them into, right now I'm printing most of my stuff on a Canon Pro 200 or Pro 300 inkjet, and it's that's what I did last month when I got back from the workshops and had 25 photos that I really wanted to print. I just shove them in there with a thing of paper and go.
Yeah, for me with the roll feed, the Epson is a really economical choice for rolls. Yeah. But that's a different thing, different breed. It's like I'm printing 8 5x7s on a strip. Yeah.
And paper choice is as a personal thing, the Epson's glossy is actually really good. Again, Red River makes some really, really good sort of comparable glossy papers. But I also have a few boxes of the Epson 4x6 premium glossy paper that, some people just like to look at that. So I don't think you have any other questions on printing there, Darren. Are you done?
I think we're about done.
Okay. Let's see here. So we had a question from Chris about filters. Now we're going to do filters in the next office hours, correct?
Oh yeah, I don't think we even announced that. We're doing an office hours on January 11th, and we're going to talk about filters and filtration. DC is using the Polar Pro system, and I've got several different systems by Case. There's a lot of different brands. There's a lot of different formats: round, square, what size, when to use neutral density, when to use a polarizer. We'll talk about all that stuff and more. So just bring questions about filters for the next office hours on January 11th, which is gonna be one of the rare moments I'm around. I'm heading to Mexico for a good chunk of the next 5 weeks.
So it's on that. Chris Madden asks, you've got Case filters, and he says, would you say they provide improved quality over Lee, or are they better purely because they're easier, faster to use? And you've done a fair amount of work on filters in the last thing. What's the easy answer?
This pandemic has been filter testing time for me. I had a number of different brands come at me wanting me to test their filters from Nisi to Case, and I tested some of the new Lee stuff and old Lee stuff, and I've been testing filters from everyone, and everyone knows I was Hoya for a really long time. Hoya just had stupendous quality. I think that when you test the filters, the latest filters from the big names like Hoya, like Lee, like Breakthrough, the big brands are building beautiful glass. I think it's all coming out of some really high-end glass companies in Taiwan and Japan. The glass is great. There were all the latest filters that I tested from Hoya, from Nisi, from Case, from Breakthrough were just comparable. Great neutral quality, no detriment that I could find shooting with and without filters for sharpness. So yeah, the older Lee filters, when they had neutral density, they had quite a bit of color cast compared to some of the other brands. The new ones are great. It's a brand new series that they put out. So if you have the older Lee filters, yes, I would recommend it. The thing that really broke it for me with Case is the simplicity of their magnetic system. Whether you're using their square filter holder with the magnetic drop-ins with the spin lever, or whether you're using just the round magnetics, which is my preferred method, and the fact that they made that 112 millimeter system that works so well with all the new Nikon glass. I love them. It's just so easy to use. It's hard to go back to anything you have to thread together.
Okay. David asks, best way to expose to the right in fog.
Yeah, that's a great question, because when we shoot out in fog, like we had the image in the gallery that we went through that was the birds and the trees, and you look at your red, green, and blue histogram, you're going to see a tiny little mountain in a sea of nothingness somewhere along the histogram. It's a really low contrast scene. Fog creates low contrast. And I tend to trust my camera's light meter. Maybe I'll move it a little to the right, but I don't want to put it all the way to the edge where the only data in the camera is the brightest of bright whites, and I have to pull the shadows out of it. I find that the camera's meter, I've shot at this foggy scenes with Sony and Fuji and Nikon in the last 5 years, and I think they all do a pretty good job. It'll look a bit underexposed. I don't want to have all my data in the shadows and have a dark looking foggy scene. Your data should be crossing the midpoint of the histogram. But in a fog situation, you probably have almost no shadows that go over to black. It's not like you're going to have, a bunch of data over in that black area where there's not that much gradation of tone that you're trying to pull from. And the cameras tend to do a pretty good job with their metering, I find. What do you think, Rick?
I agree. I mean, I think, it was such a breakthrough to really be able to sort of see live histograms, and look at our images and actually see a histogram with them. Now, they're the histogram for the JPEG, because the camera doesn't actually display raw data, but it's good enough for you to get a sense of how you can work with the image in post. And compared to the metering systems we had in the early digital cameras, I mean, what we have today, it's like it's like we have this revolution, right, in the last 10 years with mirrorless. Mirrorless has caused all of these camera companies to rethink not only the camera bodies and the sensors and the metering systems and the burst modes and all that sort of stuff, but it's like we're getting crazy great glass now. I mean, you think about these lenses that we have for these cameras, and they're just nuts.
The short distances are making a big difference. Yeah.
Well, and I think too, people are, the companies are sort of, they're reformulating their equipment for a smaller audience, right? I mean, the reality is that, the mirrorless DSLR, market has contracted. There aren't as many people going out there and buying because they got their phones now. And these companies really have to do a better job than the Canon and Nikon, Minoltas of 25 years ago.
Yeah.
It's like, I see things that come up in the questions, about people are like, I'll just use my FTZ adapter and I'll use my old Nikon glass. And there's nothing wrong with that old Nikon glass. But man, what happens when you put, like we all have these crazy 20 millimeter lenses designed for these mirrorless cameras that are just amazing. And I think about that Sony 14 millimeter 1.8 that came out this year, and it's like,
make you jealous with that. Yeah, that's
right. But there's everybody, all of the I mean, Canon, Sony, Nikon, Fuji, they're all making really good cameras right now with really great glass.
Panasonic. Yeah, that's true.
It's
And I was one of those people when I first bought into the mirrorless system. I'm like, I'll use all my F class, and I got that little 24-70 f4 just as almost like, I'll see how it is.
Yeah,
and I'm like, wow, it's better than the 24-72-8 that I had F mount. What does this mean? You start realizing, oh wow, this is a whole new world.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of nuts. I mean, it's great. It's wonderful. I mean, the downside is that all of this stuff is much more expensive than it was in the past, but I get that these companies need to stay in business. I don't want anything to happen to Sony or Nikon or Canon, so, but, seemingly simple question. What's the best way to reduce camera shake when I don't have a tripod? Get you up in your
yourself.
Yes.
Brace yourself for this answer. No, seriously, if you have, a tree or a post, I find myself leaning up against a wall and tucking my body into it. I keep my elbows in tight to my body. Don't shoot like this where you're out there not supported. Bring your elbows in, grip your camera tightly, get your hand under that lens, get your palm wrapped in on the camera, hold it securely, anchor yourself, and then if you can put yourself on something else. We were in low light in Yellowstone, in the Tetons, and we were driving through this kind of wide open field. It was a little bit misty and foggy, and all of a sudden we saw this whole group of pronghorns, and there was a low fence, and everybody popped out of the van with long lenses, and we all got down, hunched down with our cameras resting, the long lenses resting on those fences along the top rail of the fence. Yep. Boom, perfect brace. You brace yourself in any way you can. And if there's nothing to brace with, get your feet shoulder width apart, bend at the knees a little bit, keep your weight centered over the balls of your feet, and keep your elbows in tight to your body, and you're going to be way more braced. If you have a strap, like a sling strap, I love my Luma strap, you can kind of bring your elbows in, keep the strap tightened to where you can kind of push out against it a little bit to brace yourself. There's bracing. Bracing is your key. Another good thing.
So our friend Mark says, how do you note and then plan future outings from discovery when in the field? He's always seeing opportunities for interesting compositions, but the timing's not right at the time. So I'm interested how you note the composition opportunity and then somehow schedule a place a reminder for future trips back. I'm
gonna hand this back to Rick because he's the master at it, and he taught me the way that I do it. It was so simple because I would literally take a photo with my phone and then make a note in my note app, or photo opportunity, and that would be dated, and I'd have to look through my photos. Rick has, I don't know why I never thought of it, but Rick has the simple solution.
It's just that all I do when I'm in a place where the light's not right or I want to come back, when I import that photo into my Lightroom catalog, I give it a keyword called revisit. And that I've got a smart collection that basically is show me all the photos that have the revisit tag, and I've gotten to the point where actually I take them with my phone because I've got the GPS data stored in it. It's great for when I'm going out in the Columbia River Gorge and I'm looking for opportunities, and it's like, I'll just go in and look at those revisit that also have a keyword for Columbia River Project, which is one of my ongoing projects. So, and I just find that really helpful. I find it really helpful.
That's the kind of thing that keywords are made for.
Yeah. Yeah. Ralph says that he uses photo pills to store these notes or store locations. I think it's just a matter of, it's another one of those things that try and figure out what is a system that works for you and start working on it. I mean, it's all part of organization, so.
Hey.
Okay, I actually think. Oh, all right, Jason, our good friend Jason also had a question about, his submission to the gallery this time was about an extremely cold weather shot, and he said his hands literally stopped working because it was so cold. He wanted to know about gloves, and I know you have given this great thought. So,
well, so I use a pair of OR gloves. Outdoor Research is the company, and I have them linked. I believe it's in necessities on my website at ATS Links. But they slip on, and they have a finger and thumb touch screen capability. They're not the warmest glove on earth. They're tight fitting, but they're warmer than, say, a glove liner. They're significantly warmer. They're kind of a neoprene material, and you can work with the touch screen on your camera or your phone, given it's not as nice as just your bare finger, but your fingers aren't freezing to death. And I can work all the controls on my camera with it. I can work with those gloves. And then the thing that you want to look for is a pair of over mitts. And I've actually just found a pair of Outdoor Research ones. You want a down pair of over mitts or even lobster mitts that you take the fleece liners out of and just put those gloved hands inside. So all you gotta do is pull your hand out, and you don't have to take your glove off. It's inside a warmer mitt for that cold condition. You pull it out and you can work with your camera with those thinner gloves that have touchscreen, fingertip, and thumb. It's a really nice way to go. I'm sorry. I do need to jump in and edit my links to add those over mitts that I just found. But you can buy the thinner gloves on Amazon. The over mitts you have to get from Outdoor Research themselves. That's the only way you can get a pair that don't come with the bigger liners in them.
We've got a couple people chiming in. Rob and Josh talk about aircrew flight gloves that work great. And Ralph says there are some great gloves from the Heat Company. He says they have different liners and mittens you can open. And then, we also had I don't remember who it was in the Tetons who had hand warmers.
Yeah.
Rechargeable hand warmers.
Or chemical hand warmers.
Yeah, but these were actually rechargeable.
Well, Charlie has a rechargeable hand warmer he
Right.
puts in his pocket. He's got that circulation issue. You can buy it off Amazon. It's kind, and it can also
Yeah.
charge your phone. It's like a
Yeah.
it's like a battery brick that
Right.
gets warm in your hand. So that's not a bad
we're-
thing.
and
There
we're
are
out of
actually
time.
electric heated gloves too.
Yeah, we're out of time, but I did want to, Willis chimed in on the whole revisit thing. He says he uses folders on his phone, like tree, fog, sunset, sunrise, etc. You know, again, it's just thinking about how you want to think about those things and call them back when you need to. So,
Right. A quick reminder before we break out of here that the 11th, we're going to talk about all things filters. Make sure you bring your filter questions, submit them when you sign up. We'll spend some time demoing and talking about filters. I hope everybody is having a great holiday season, that it's kicked off and there's plenty of time with family and good food. And I hope that there's lots more in store in the next couple of weeks. My family and I are taking off. Actually, a whole bunch of family. We're flocking down to do a sunny Baja style Christmas just to the south of La Paz in a great kiteboarding spot. So I'm looking forward to that. I hope people that are traveling are safe, and I hope everybody just enjoys good cheer and family. It's that time of year. So,
and thanks again for submitting such great images.
Yeah, and congrats to the winners. We'll be in touch with the gift certificates and the Foolography. Happy holidays, everybody. Thanks so much for joining, and we'll see you all face to face in the new year.
Take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks, Woody. Thanks, Darren.
Thanks.